All right, good morning again. So I'm Nate Soul. I'm with RTX BBN Technologies, and despite the fact that the JPRA logo is not on this slide, you are in the right place if you're looking for the JPRA brief. I'm going to be talking this morning about a whole suite of tools that JPRA is sponsoring and that BBN has been helping them build in the space of search and rescue, personnel recovery, and tools for isolated personnel. If you've been at prior offsites, you may have heard me or others talk about a couple of these tools. I'm going to provide updates on a couple of the longer running tools, LandSAR and the survival plugin in particular. And then I'll jump into some of the new and really pretty exciting stuff that's going on now and that will be evolving next week at an event in Michigan called Evasive Warrior. So let me jump right into it in the name of time then. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is something called the survival plugin and some extensions to this tool called NourishML. So the survival plugin is an ATAK plugin that is meant for assisting isolated personnel or others who are trying to survive in austere and unfamiliar locations. So what you're looking at some screenshots from the tool now, and what JPRA did was take lots of data that was already being compiled onto the evasion charts that they were building for the DoD and digitized it and put it into an ATAK plugin. So it's a location-aware information tool, so it knows that I'm in country X or country Y, and it will pull up the relevant information based on my location. You can see a menu on the left-hand side here that I can see information about shelter and clothing and medical and edible plants in the area, and some general purpose tools as well, right? How to do signaling, how to do navigation, some translation aids for the languages that might be in the region I'm in. And there's nice figures you can see along here for instructing somebody on how to perform any of these activities or understand what they're looking at in their environment. The potentially more exciting piece, and the piece that we're working actively on now, though, is something that we're calling NourishML. And so this is a capability that runs within the survival plugin and lets you take your ATAK device and point it at a plant or a bush or a tree in your surroundings, and it will identify what species you're looking at and then provide you information about, is it edible, is it poisonous, is it medicinal, if it's edible, what parts of that plant are edible, and how do you prepare it, right? Is it just the leaves or just the roots, and do they need to be boiled? And then there's also other information in here that can help you to do all of this safely, so guides on how to test to make sure that the plant that you're looking at is in fact what the system thinks it is. So the screenshots you're looking at here, you can see kind of in the top right that I'm looking at some wood sorrel, and the tool is telling me that it thinks it's got a 65% confidence that that is in fact wood sorrel, which it is. And in the lower screenshot on the right here, looking at some persimmon, and it's 85% confident that what you're looking at is in fact persimmon. But it gives you other options there as well. So you can see there are other species listed below. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but this is all in an attempt to make sure that we give good guidance to the isolated person, right? You know, the number one thing we want to avoid here is telling them to eat something that they shouldn't, and then bad things happen. And so we want to inform and provide context for everything that we're analyzing here and that the machine learning is doing on the phone. And I guess to that point, everything I'm talking about in terms of the information that we're displaying up here and the machine learning capability all runs directly on the phone itself, so no network required at all. The machine learning models for this are running on your Android device. So I can get an understanding of what I'm looking at, and if I want to know more, I can tap and in the top left screenshot here, you can see I tapped on wood sorrel, and then it gives me information about its edibility rating, what parts of it are edible, and a whole write-up, along with other pictures of wood sorrel from other data sets. So the user can then go and really try and match against those. But as I mentioned, we really want to avoid that case where we give bad guidance. And so the we're trying to do a number of things in that realm to protect against that. And so I list 3 of them here. One is probability of presence information. So what I mean by this is JPRA, along with the Army Geospatial Lab, compiled a data set across hundreds of different species of plants to say what is the probability that that species exists at any particular location on Earth. And so what NourishML can do is pull up and display to the user that information about the species that it's suggesting. So it might say, yeah, I'm pretty confident that you're looking at wood sorrel or bananas or something else, and but the user can then look and see that they are currently in a region of the world where there's only a 2% chance that that species would exist. And so then they can know to really question and be skeptical about the advice that the AI and the ML is providing. There's also a doppelganger system built into the tool. So there are human-curated data sets of plant lookalikes that we're calling doppelgangers, where species X happens to look a whole lot like species Y. And there are a number of organizations who have gone through the painstaking task of putting all of that information together, and we're simply consuming it in the tool so that if you were to get a result here for any one of these particular plants, it would also tell you with a big exclamation point that this plant species has doppelgangers and that you should be looking at those as well because some of them may be poisonous. And then I mentioned the last one already, the top 5 results. We display not just the top result that the ML thinks that the plant is, but the top 5 things it thinks it might be. And the way you would use that is, here we can see it's really heavily weighted towards that persimmon, 85.8%. But if some of the species below it that the system thought might also be what you're looking at had higher percentages in terms of the confidence score there, especially if some of them were poisonous, you would know to be skeptical. Now, the tool has a really high accuracy level, especially in lab tests. We're now going through real-world testing to ensure that it reflects there as well. But it has a high accuracy for top 1, but it has a really high accuracy for the top 5, which means the species that is really being looked at is with high confidence in the top 5 things that it lists for you. So if you look at that list and you see that all 5 are edible, you can have some extra confidence that you can eat what you're looking at. All right, so here's a view of that doppelganger system in action. In addition to being able to do this from NourishML, there's also a capability in the survival plugin to just browse through the plants that are in the region, and you can see, maybe not in the back, but there's a little exclamation icons here for any that have lookalikes. And if you tap on them, you get into a new screen that gives you all kinds of information about that plant, along with pictures and descriptions of the lookalikes so you can try and distinguish. The other thing we're trying to do to make sure that the machine learning here is really as accurate as possible is to try and make the problem space smaller. What we've done up until this point is use a global model that knows about plant species across the world. But it turns out if we look at a smaller subset of those species, the model can be even more accurate. And it also turns out that at any given location on Earth, most of those species that the models know about aren't relevant because they're not in your region. So what we're doing now is training regional models for regions across the globe, that each of which has a smaller number of species to consider, and thus the machine learning algorithms can be more accurate. Now, one of the questions that comes up then is, what are the regions? Do you train models by biome, by country, by COCOM, by evasion chart region? The smaller the region, the more accurate, but also the more models that you need to train. And it's just not feasible to train 20,000 models for hyper-focused local models. Just simply the act of deploying those to the phone and making sure you have the right one at the right time would make this infeasible. And so we need to find that balance between small to get high accuracy and large to reduce the number of overall models you need to train, and thus the management headache of getting them to the phone. So what we found is that around 13 clusters, 13 regions is kind of the sweet spot. And when we ran an analysis to try and identify what those regions were and which species should be in each, we found that there are 3 of those 13 clusters that actually account for 85% of the total Earth coverage. And that's what you see along the right-hand side, those 3 groups. And so what we've done is trained these 13 models, loaded 3 of them onto the phone along with the global model so that you always have that no matter where you are. And so out of the box, it's going to roll out with 85% coverage landmass across the Earth. And if you're in that 15%, if you're deploying to a region that is in that 15%, then you can manually load one of the additional models onto the phone. And you can also switch between the models with a nice little UI here if you want, if where your GPS thinks you are might not be where you actually are. And JPRA is using this a lot right now as they're going around to botanical garden after botanical garden to test this out. And the botanical gardens in Virginia or DC might have plant species from all over the world. And so you can quickly and easily switch between the models. All right, so that was the survival plugin. Next up here is Osprey. You might also have heard it called Landsar. In reality, they're the same tool. They're search and rescue predictive analytics tool. Landsar is the name that we give for the civilian version of this, and Osprey is the name that we use on the military side. But they're both trying to solve the same problem, which is if I've got some rough sense of the last known location of an isolated or lost person, can I predict where that person might be now or at some point in the future? And then if I have information about the search assets that are looking for them, can I provide an optimal recommendation to those assets about how best to cover the area to locate that lost or isolated person? So here's some screenshots and a little bit more information. As I mentioned, there's a Civ and Mil version. There's also a web version of this, but the version I'm going to talk most about here is the version that runs within ATAK as an ATAK plugin. And in all the cases, Civ, Mil, Web, and ATAK, the same concepts apply. And what we're looking at really here is on the right-hand side, starting on the bottom, we're going to feed into the system. The human user is going to provide a few things. The last known location, which might be a point or a circle or a region, and then a model of the isolated or lost person, right? So is this a civilian hiker who's never hiked before, or is this a really trained seer operator who is trying to evade? Because the two are going to move very differently. And so we've got a number of different models that you can select from. You specify the last known location, and then optionally you can provide search asset information, right? Like I've got a helicopter flying at this altitude with these kinds of sensors on it, or I've got 10 dismounted folks on the ground looking. And once all that information gets pulled in, the system will automatically then pull in terrain data. So for land-based searches, we're looking at elevation and land cover. For maritime, it'll pull in ocean currents or the shape of a river if we're looking at a riverine search. And then it'll go into the phone. All of the number crunching will happen, and what comes out the other side are heat maps that are intended to show where the system believes that lost or isolated person is or will be at some point in the future. So that little blue bar on the bottom is a timeline slider that you can drag forwards or backwards in time to animate those heat maps and see how they change as you go forward and backward in time. And then optionally, you can also, if you provided search asset information, it'll produce one of these teal boxes in the bottom with the ladder pattern that'll show the system's recommendation on how best to cover that space. So under the hood, in the models that are built into the tool, what it's really doing is simulating 5,000 possible paths that an isolated or lost person might take based on that motion model that you selected and based on the land cover and the elevation, or in the open ocean scenario in ocean currents. But we've also added support for plugins to the tool that will allow you to extend it with your own models, right? So if you wanted to build a plugin for an Alzheimer's patient, or for an injured pilot, or for a model that understands trail networks, you can now build your own models and then run that within the tool. On the waterfront, it supports riverine models and open ocean models. It'll pull in open ocean currents data globally from a system called HICOM that's on a Navy server. And if it's on the riverine side, it's going to pull in the shape of the river from OpenStreetMaps and other sources. And then it'll also be able to consider things like mental models, right? Maybe I'm in that river accidentally, or maybe however I got in the river, I'm in there and I want to stay in there because I want to use it for stealth, right? No footprints. And so depending on things like the water temperature and the marine life and my mission goals, I may choose to get out of the river earlier than I would otherwise. And so the system allows you to specify that kind of information for those models. For anyone who's familiar with a Coast Guard system called SAROPS, this is not meant to replace that. SAROPS is a much bigger, more complex, more capable tool that if you have access to SAROPS, you should use it. The open ocean models for Osprey are really intended to be the hasty version of SAROPS. When I want to run a model 3 minutes after this incident happened and I don't have reach back to an air-conditioned data center somewhere where somebody's running the SAROPS tool, that's where Osprey can be a good option. And we're exploring if Osprey might even be a front end one day to a subset of the SAROPS capabilities. So when I've talked about this tool in the past, it was all running on the server. All the heavy number crunching would happen on the server, and the ATAK device was just simply a dumb UI that would display the results. But as we started working with the Air Force Special Warfare Office, the requirement came through that, hey, we don't often run servers, and we need to be able to operate when there's no network. So can you make this all run on a phone? And luckily, modern mobile phones have come a long way in the past handful of years, and the answer is now yes, that within a couple of minutes, we can actually run those same computations on the phone. And so the version of Osprey and Landsar that we're focused on at the moment does everything completely on your phone, no network required. Now, of course, I talked about needing elevation data and ocean current data and land cover data and the shapes of rivers and all of these kind of things. So that data does need to get onto the phone somehow. And it used to be that a server administrator could go and point the server at online data sources or cache that data and put it on the server. But now it's in the hands of an end user, of an operator who needs to have a simple way to go and easily pull down that data. So we've built a tool that we're calling the data downloader within Osprey, within Landsar, where you just go and draw a bounding box for the region that you're interested in, and it will go and pull down the land cover, the elevation, and the ocean currents for that region and cache it on the device. So if you can do this while you have network connectivity before you roll out, then you'll have all of that on your phone and literally no network required after that. So my hope had been to say, Landsar is on the Play Store today, and it might be just later today. We are just waiting for it to get posted. We've got all the approvals and we've got all the software artifacts together, and just so happens that a lot of the folks that would do the posting are here at the conference with us. But within the next few days, you should see Landsar come up on the Google Play Store. It's already out on TAK.gov. There's one bug that somebody nicely found yesterday, and so that has been fixed, and all of this should be rolled out within hopefully the next 24, 48 hours. We'd love for your feedback. If something works for you, love to hear that. If something doesn't work for you, let us know, so hopefully we can fix it. All right, on to the next topic then. There is an event happening next week in northern Michigan called Evasive Warrior, and I just wanted to do a quick teaser for this. In part as a heads up of what's happening next week, but in part as an advertisement for this time next year when Evasive Warrior 26 will be happening. So this is a JPRA organized event that is part hackathon, part demonstration, part integration event, part evaluation, where there are more than 200 people now, I think, coming together from dozens of government organizations, dozens of industry partners, and multiple countries coming to the Michigan National Guard's Alpena Combat Readiness Training Center up in Alpena, Michigan. And the goal is to combine and extend right there on the spot technologies that could be useful for personnel recovery. So this is tracking, locating, beacons, health reporting, anything you can think of that would help an isolated person or would help the personnel recovery team that's trying to recover that person. So this is kicking off on Monday, and we'll go throughout the week next week. But there will be another iteration of this next year, and so if you're interested, let me know or any of the JPRA folks. Couple teasers of things that we're working at this year's Evasive Warrior. The first year is something called TAK Cell to SAT. So if you're not familiar, there are a number of organizations doing this, but the one I'll talk about here is T-Mobile and Starlink, who have come together to offer what they're calling T-Satellite. And what this does is, with nothing more than your mobile phone, no additional hardware, no additional radios, no additional firmware, if you are paying T-Mobile $10 a month, you can now send short messages from your phone over the Starlink network, so basically from anywhere on Earth, without having cell connectivity. So you can be in an austere location, no cell coverage, and still send short messages. And I actually tested this out at at an event in Montana a month or two ago. That was, I was in a place where there wasn't even a single bar of cell reception for at least an hour's drive, and I was able to send messages back and forth with folks. So what we're doing with TAK CTS is to allow you to piggyback on this T-Satellite network and send markers on your ATAK map or chat messages from ATAK over T-Satellite. So again, no new hardware, no new software, your existing phone, no cell coverage, no tactical radios. I just walk out into the middle of nowhere, and now I can send a marker from my ATAK map to any of my contacts that also have a phone with a text with a phone number. And so the way that we're doing this is actually over SMS at the moment. So we're encoding your COT data, simplified version of it, into an SMS message, sending that over the satellite network. It comes back down and is received by another phone, and we want to add support maybe next week for this for a TAKServer plugin to do the same thing. So you can send your message from your ATAK over T-Satellite down to a TAKServer that can then distribute it out to all the other users that are on whatever networks they're on. And as a side effect of all of this, you've got support for if you happen to be on a 3G network and you've got SMS, but you don't have a data network, you can now send TAK data, which this is something we and others did years ago for 3G, but now are bringing back to support T-Satellite. I think this is the last topic here. In the same vein as no additional new hardware required, let me talk to some satellites. We're also working with a company called Hubble Network, and they have a network of 88 million Bluetooth devices around the world that they've used to enable you to track people and assets across the globe. But the new thing that they're doing is enhancing that to not need to talk Bluetooth to Bluetooth. So think Apple AirTag or Tile trackers, and instead allowing those devices to talk to a satellite. And the cool thing is allowing them to do that with no new hardware. All they do is they flash their new firmware onto your existing Bluetooth chipset, and instead of being able to talk relatively high bandwidth to somebody close to me, I talk really, really low bandwidth to a LEO, a low Earth orbit satellite. And so now with something like a tile tracker or anything that you're willing and able to overwrite your Bluetooth firmware for, you can tap into the Hubble network and again send from anywhere on Earth and not need to have that constraint of being in a dense area of other Bluetooth devices to share that information around. So no new hardware, yes, new firmware. And what we've been doing with this is we've built a Hubble TAK plugin for TAKServer that will actually reach out to the Hubble network and pull in, they've got an API, and we'll pull in the data for the devices that are associated with whatever account you have with Hubble, and then it'll show up on the map. And I'm realizing now that this is probably too small to really see, but in the middle of the peninsula up there, there are a couple of blue dots. Those are coming from the Hubble network. What we're working with right now is they overwrote their Bluetooth firmware on tile trackers. So it's a commercial, low-cost tracking device, identical almost to an Apple AirTag, but from another company. They overwrote the Bluetooth on the tile trackers, and now that's reaching up to a satellite. Our API is hitting their ground station network and pulling the data out and putting it on TAK. All right, and I think I just have maybe a minute left, so happy to take any questions now or offline afterwards. Any questions?
Very impressive work. I had a question about the Nourish ML.
Yes.
What is the impact on battery life when using that?
So it's a great question. It's a relatively low impact. I don't have a figure I can give you, but I can anecdotally tell you it is relatively low. And the reason I say that is not because Nourish is friendly to your battery, because it is not, but it's because you're not out there scanning the countryside for hours on end. You're walking up to a plant, looking at it for 30 seconds, maybe walking up to another, looking at it for 30 seconds, and trying to use it in that kind of fashion. So if you're using it in that mode and you're taking advantage of the Nourish capability for minutes and not hours, it shouldn't be a major impact. It is a decent sized draw where running machine learning models might actually hit your GPU and use a bunch of power, but for such short duration that hopefully it won't have a material impact on the mission.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll be around afterwards if others have questions, and thank you guys otherwise.